Good evening.
I
Are a bit late.
I'm I'm going to put myself on mute because there are people ringing the bell and the dog is barking. So
Okay,
okay.
got it. Okay, so I have you there to up the page Siman Gimel, and it's right about Gevurah and Anavah, and first he said Gevurah and Anavah is the most important middah necessary in order to work on other middos. I think Gevurah and Anavah middah karma od. It's spoken in shleimus bein meprat bein meklal. Needed for every acquisition of shleimus, specific or general. I'm a matim. Oh, sorry, I started in share screen. Okay, it's better. Became Gevurah and Anavah middah yikara ma'od mitzarech spoken in shleimus. It's required for all the acquisition of shleimus. Very few people acquire it in its pure form. They say he gas gam meitzanis b'tziura lekama middos ra'os. Wow, because it borders, and we said, of course, Rav Kook said that part of the Atzvus and middos is Nesirah. It's separating middos from each other, which are not, which are similar, but need to be defined as specifically different. And he said that even about middos tovos, you have to be able to define separate good middos. But certainly here he says Gevurah and Anavah is very similar in its way it looks to several middos rows: kas, anger; gaiva, pride; kina, jealousy; sina, hatred; nitzachon. Nitzachon here means to lord it over other people, to be vanquish other people. Nikima, revenge. And sometimes you have Gevurah and Anavah, which is not used for Yiras Hashem. That's together with the negative middos. You have people who are very, very, so to speak, courageous, and their courage does not come from a pure source, but an impure source. And there are people who have put in their mind to take upon themselves the yoke of Yira. Then they have not undertaken to carefully analyze their specific middos and how to fix them. And therefore they didn't distinguish between the middah of Gevurah and Anavah and the middah which surround it. He's nichua kula, and they rejected all of it. So I obviously we can see that Gevurah and Anavah is related in a negative way to kina, because some people will use the middah of Gevurah and Anavah to be zealous, and not just jealous but zealous, which is a very, very dangerous thing, and that's because Rav Kook calls the basically frumkeit, which is, he says, is a very negative middah. And but here he's saying something else. He's saying that, or perhaps Wesley meant before, but here he's saying that also people, you say, Gevurah and Anavah, it's dangerous because it could become mixed up with other middos. So therefore, they rejected it altogether. The proper pathway leaves freed. For freed and to separate uvarer psolos mitoch lavur psolos mitoch ochel, and to remove the dross from the food. Chosh neseros to surrender l'mashmata. And then not only that, but once you define Gevurah and Anavah in its proper place, it can harness the positive aspects of the negative middos, and discipline them. That which is good and straight in the eyes of Hashem, which is a very big kiddush, but obviously it makes sense, right? Because there are all sorts of ways of using kina and sina in a positive way, but they're dangerous and they have to be subservient to Gevurah and Nefesh in the proper positive sense, which, of course, he says is essential in order to distinguish which middos are good, which bad, which situationally are good and bad. Derek said, Rabu middos shetzrichos Nesirah. So this is one example. Other middos require Nesirah. Shekos man she'edvuka zu b'zu, as long as they are connected to each other, clinging to each other. Lo tibiana pri bracha, they will not bring a fruit of blessing. There are many kochos and nefesh which are bound, which neighbor many sides with bad negative kochos in most of their usages. And those who have boundaries only with a few bad middos. Being able to distinguish this allows us to demonstrate or to indicate, to teach the drachim which the midah can be redeemed from amidst negative middos which might even surround it. Another midah tova. Humility is a tremendous, great midah. She there in another Mussar Avicha. When he knows the concept of another well, it's concept well. He knows how to conduct himself with it and to bring it into his soul. But on a superficial level, superficial perspective, there can be a linkage, and after the midah of another can come, the midah of sadness. In other words, the person who's an anav is close to sadness. People are humble, people are sad, they look very similar. Shasimcha, okay, this is the antithesis. Simcha spreads the kochos and nefesh. Gaiva also spreads the kochos and nefesh. And a person who's besimcha and a person who's begaiva can look very similar to each other. As the simcha mifarozeres boven atov, simcha spreads in a good way. V'gaiva mifazeres al derech ra, and gaiva spreads in a bad way. V'anova kabetzes, anova gathers. The better word is, and Rav Kook, maybe he got this from the Sefer of Rav Kook, because we know that Rav Kook was the Talmud of Rav Kook. Rav Kook says that, Rav Kook says that Ava is a midah of expansiveness, and Yira is a midah of contraction. So Ava is expand, Yira is to contract, sometimes to retract, or to constrict. The other verbs that you can use in order to define Yira, which are all related in English. So here's saying something similar about Gaiva and Simcha being expansive middos, right? Person is, I think we discussed this last week, right? A person who is let's use it here too. Person who is extroverted. Person extroverted could be about Gaiva and about Simcha, and they come across as very similar. Them because very similar about Gaiva and about Simcha, because they're gregarious, they're outgoing, they're expansive. Where on the other hand, a person who is an anav is introverted, and to be introverted comes across as being very often comes across being sad, it's being an atzvus. So it's sometimes very hard to tell the difference between the extrovert about Gaiva and the extrovert about Simcha, and the introverted anav and the introverted atzev. Right? So like Rav Kook says, the expansive middos and the contraction middos, the flip sides, which are good and sometimes they're bad. So that so he says Anavah kabetzes miyasheves, Anavah contracts or gathers and calms. So to somebody is sad, he gathers, contracts into himself, and obviously is more calm. El shazel derech hatoy b'zel derech hara. Anavah is good, eats etzem is bad. Kach midas anava toiva. Oh no. Yeah. The kach midas anava toiva mitzvah says midas atzvus hara. And that this way, anava, which is good, is shares a boundary with the midah of atzvus, which is bad. For it to use, if he doesn't learn specifically how to extract his middos from the theory to the practice. So when he thinks about anava and he wants to expand his perception of it. It's your by there, of course, and this perception comes by recognizing how small his value is. Well, midas atzvus ganke by there, of course, right? Atzvus also comes by recognizing your shortcomings. Okay, the bono shtem biyachad. They'll come both together. But atzvus tarbev, and the sadness will get mixed up. The takdir and will darken. Called nam anava ziba, all the pleasantness of anava and all its radiance. Even though superficially they look like they have one pathway, the same pathway. But in the roots of the depths of roots, they're very distant from each other. Atzvus is preceded by knowing, deciding actually that you're extremely valuable, lofty, and you are destined for greatness. And to his dismay, he finds himself shortcomings and defects. Which is not appropriate. The Zebavad might even though the Leva evidence certainly causes anguish to heart and soul. And it's not from the midah of emes, meaning that the chesroinus machsorim, even they're there, the emes, I think is what he means. Emes is not to use that to be ba'atzvus. That's just negative. Sheker. Because the real reason of another by that doesn't say any about tomorrow shum gedola. Another comes from a different. It can reach the same point, but it comes from a different starting point. It comes after you know that yourself is not really destined to any shum gedula, to any greatness. Any greatness and goodness which comes in Chesed Hashem is part of it. It's the Chesed of Hashem. Ozzy a shovel be'enav, so he'll be humbly low in his eyes. V'nigra berko, feel less of value. Aval etzev lo yeda, we won't be sad. Somebody is sad, and somebody who feels that they have great potential, and they messed up. Somebody they had greatness, and it was not recognized. Some is other things. I'm not great, so everything which I accomplish, everything I do, that's matana from Shamayim, right? So it says that the etzev lo yedai won't be sad. Raki smachim and askarolo. He'll be happy in what he has and how much he's able to do with it. And even the small amount of good, if you can only find a small good amount in himself, he'll thank Kodesh Baruch Hu. And he'll try and acquire even more precious middos. Because since he sees that he's not suitable on his own, but nevertheless, Hashem's chesed is powerful on him to do good for him, to bestow upon him certain things, traits, and so on. Because those just be like this will bring him even greater and more astounding levels. Okay, so we learned this week a very, very fundamental and very, very powerful idea that middos tovos, even the greatest middos tovos, are share boundaries with middos ros. Let's be careful that to separate them, and then to use the midah tova to subordinate and sublimate and uplift the midah ra. And that anava, gaiva, and simcha can be mistaken for each other. They're both extroverted, expansive middos. And yira and or Gevurah and Nefesh, whatever, Yira and no,
Anavah and Atzvus.
right, Etzev and Etzev, right, Anavah and Itzava are both contracting, and they're both neighbors, and they one can spill into the other. So therefore, one has to be careful that one's Anavah comes not as a result of crushing disappointment and despair, but as a result of real humility and knowing one has to one's own gifts are only gifts given to a person in order to accomplish them what he's supposed to accomplish for Hashem. Okay,
the Mesirah Sharm says that Anavah is the hardest middah to get.
Yes,
to acquire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, this is great stuff. I think we'll stop here because then we're going to have to get into Gevurah next week. Okay. Meantime, we're going to enjoy a week of Anavah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
Take care. Have a good week.